What's up, jackalopes? I'm Hope. Welcome back to my channel. And also welcome to the return of TBR Betrayal. This is my old TBR game, which, if you haven't seen my older videos, is based on my favorite board game, Betrayal at the House on the Hill. And yeah, I haven't been using this for a few months. I kind of stopped reading a lot for a while because of some classes I was taking. I just got really overwhelmed. But I really enjoy playing this game every month, and I do want to get more used to reading off of a list because I am planning to be an English master's student, so I'm gonna need to be good at reading off of a list. So I want to get back into using my TBR game to choose my TBRs each month, so that's what this is. And just a quick reminder for how this all works, I basically have I'm directionally challenged, I'm sorry. I have two lists of 6 characters. There's one back here too. And I'm going to roll a d12 and that will give me a character. Their knowledge stat will be the number of books that I need to have on my TBR for the month. And then there are, I think it's 5 kinds of tiles here. So I don't know if these are at all visible, but I'm going to zoom in a second. But there are omen tiles, which are specific titles I have to add to my TBR. Item tiles, which are modifiers that apply to the next book I add to my list. Event tiles, which are prompts for me to add a book to my list. Challenge tiles, which are the special challenges where I have to attempt a roll, and success or failure can affect where I'm at on the board, how many books are on my TBR, things like that. And then blank tiles are mood reads. Those are tiles that I can fill in later in the month with whatever I want to read. And this just gives me a little extra flexibility. So that's pretty much how this is going to work. I do want to note that for the omens, I am doing something slightly different than I used to, which is that I made all these cards and they have specific titles on them. But since I made them, I have read several of the books on these, and these were a pain in the ass to make, so I don't want to remake a bunch of them. So I'm planning to paint over this with white paint and just number them 1 through 20, because I do have a list of 20 books in a Notion page for this game. And yeah, I'm gonna recreate these. It'll just be a number instead, but until I'm able to get some white paint and do that, I am planning to instead roll a d20, and that will tell me which book off that list I need to read. So that is basically it, and I think let's just dive in. So first things first, I need to roll a d12 to find out which character I'm going to be playing as, and then I will zoom in to the starting section of the board. I forgot to mention I am starting fresh since I haven't played this in several months, and this works well for me. I'm planning to try and start my master's program next fall. That's what I'm applying for. So that gives me a year to really work on bringing down my physical TBR and a year to play this game. And since there are 12 characters, I think this will work perfectly. So, let's see who's first. Okay, we got number 11. It's not gonna focus. This thing doesn't like to focus for me. Anyway, you'll have to trust me, it's number 11. And that is going to be on this side of the board, and it is Mahit from A Memory Called Empire. So let me grab her character tile real quick, and we will get started. Okay, so I think this is mostly in frame. Yeah, that's the side edge. So we are ready to get started over here at the entrance. Last time I started by going down towards the basement. This time I think I'm going to start going upwards. So roll my 2 die and figure out what my first book is going to be. Quick note, I almost forgot. Mahit's knowledge is 3. So I need to have 3 books on my TBR for August. So first roll. We got a 4. I don't know if that's going to be visible. It's a 4. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So right off the bat, I have an omen. So first things first, I'm going to roll the number for the omen, and I will reveal that book later. But let's find out what the number is going to be. And it is a 9. I don't think it's going to focus on this. Someday I'll learn how to work the focus on this camera. I suppose you're just gonna have to trust me that this very shiny object is a 9. And because I got an omen, I need to do a haunt roll. I don't want to roll a 0 because then the haunt begins. If the haunt begins, I have to pick a monster chip, which I will do by randomly generating a color, and the prompt that goes with that monster will be applicable to the rest of the books for the month. Well, one fell on the floor, but it was a 1. I rolled a 5, so I'm safe. No haunt for me today. All right, let's see what the next roll is. I rolled a 2. So next we go 1, 2, and this one is a prompt. Let's see what we got. A book with deckled edges, which it doesn't like. Oh, maybe this is the secret. A book with deckled edges. So that's 2 books on my TBR, and let's see what happens next. And I rolled a 2 again, and that puts us on another prompt. This one says, a book set in the future. Okay, well, that is officially 3 books on my TBR for the month. I will meet you back here in a couple of minutes with my picks. Okay, I'm back with my picks. And first up was Omen number 9, which on my list was Game On by Dustin Hanson. This is a book about the history of the video game industry and some of the major innovations that have occurred over the last several decades. And if you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I'm really into video games. I'm intending to get into game studies, so this kind of thing is right up my alley. I'm excited to read this one, and yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting. I've been wanting to read it for a while. It's been on my shelf for a few months, and I just haven't been prioritizing it. So I'm actually really glad that this came up because I think it is finally time for me to read it. Also a good opportunity because I'm planning to start my master's degree, as I mentioned earlier, in a year. So getting some of these books relevant to my academic interests as well, kind of read and, you know, notes taken on them if I want to, I think that's going to be a good thing. But I'm really looking forward to reading this one, and also I really love the cover. I just think it's really cool looking. Next up was a book with deckled edges, and I have Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. This will be my second Jane Austen book. I don't know a lot about it, but I believe it is kind of a parody of Gothic literature, which I like Gothic literature, so I think that something that plays off of those tropes is going to be really intriguing and really enjoyable for me. I also really enjoyed Pride and Prejudice, which is the other Austen book that I have read, and loved it way more than I thought. Like, it is one of my favorite books, and I wasn't even expecting to like it that much. So I am really excited to try something else, and I think that this is going to be a good next step for me in my Austen reading journey. And then lastly, a book set in the future. I have The Salt Line by Holly Goddard Jones. This is a post-apocalyptic book that's set in the Appalachian Mountains. Society is receded behind what's called the Salt Line, which is a scorched earth barrier that protects the people from the killer ticks outside. And it follows a group of tourists who go on a kind of thrill-seeking trip over the Salt Line, and during this trip get kidnapped and held for ransom. And so it is about the characters, it's about their relationships with each other, and it's about what they are willing to do to get back inside the Salt Line. So I think it's going to be very character-driven, which I like, and it's very different from anything else I've read, so I think that this will be kind of a fun experiment to see how I feel about post-apocalyptic literature, because I really don't read a lot of that. It hasn't previously interested me, although recently I have read the Sixth World series by Rebecca Roanhorse. I'm caught up on that one now, and I really enjoyed those, so I want to read some other books that are set post-apocalypse to see how I feel about them. But I think this is going to be really interesting, and the guy that sold it to me at my local bookstore seemed very convinced that I was going to love it. I think he liked it a lot, so yeah, I think that this will be an interesting one. It's definitely different from the other things that I tend to read. So those are the 3 books I have to read, and I really think that's going to be doable. And since I do have kind of a short list, I actually have several other things I would like to get to in August as well. So first up, I want to mention that BookTube Spin number 3 is happening. It's technically running through July, from July through September, which, if you haven't heard of BookTube Spin, it's this really long thing led by Rick McTennell, and he accidentally announced it a month early. It was supposed to be announced, the next round was supposed to begin in August, but he accidentally announced it at the end of June, so he decided to just go ahead and give everybody an extra month. Went ahead and did the spins to find the numbers, and he did 2 numbers since we have an extra month, and I ended up with, for the first spin, The Helm of Midnight by Marina Lostetter, which is a kind of dark fantasy serial killer story about this city where a serial killer named Louis Charbon terrorized people for a time, and then he's, I think, been executed or died somehow, and now somebody has gone into his tomb and stolen his death mask, and for whatever reason that is now allowing him to return and start killing again from beyond the grave. So it follows an investigator who is trying to stop the killings. He's trying to figure out what's going on and prevent him from killing more. So that was one, and then the other one I got was For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, which is also a dark fantasy. This one is a Red Riding Hood retelling that follows Red, who's the second daughter of the royal family, and because the first daughter is the one who will take the throne, the second daughter is sacrificed to the wolf in order to like free the realm's gods or something like that. And when she gets to this place where she's being sent, things are not as they seem, and it turns out that the wolf also doesn't know what happened to the realm's gods, or at least wasn't involved in it, and she ends up working with the wolf to try and avert some sort of disaster. So I think there's also a romance between her and the wolf. So I think this will be interesting. Again, kind of different from other things that I've read. I've just recently started reading a little bit more fantasy with romance elements in it. So I am interested to see how I feel about this one. I have heard really good things about the prose in this book, so I am excited about that. After that, I do have a couple of more books that are for book clubs that I've been following online. The first one is the Blades and Bodice Rippers book club, which is Mara from Books Like Whoa, Leanne from Leanne's Library, Beautifully Bookish Bethany, and someone else whose name I can't remember, but if I can find it, I will put it somewhere on the screen. I think there's 4 people, but their August pick is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, which is a political fantasy following Touraine, who's a soldier, and Luca, who's a princess, who I believe end up semi-teaming up to try and overthrow Luca's uncle and reclaim the throne. And so I think this is going to be really interesting. I know it talks a lot about like colonization and the impacts of that, and thematically I think it's going to be really interesting. My best friend just read this and she actually was really disappointed, but although she and I tend to agree on books, when we disagree, we frequently disagree on things that have to do with like character motivations and characterization. And a lot of her complaints about this book were regarding characters' motivations and their characterization. So I'm interested to see what I think in comparison to her thoughts on the book, because I think that there is a strong chance that we might have differing opinions. So I am really excited to get into this one. It's pretty chunky, but I do have some holiday time booked for August. I have some vacation, and so I'm hoping to maybe get to this during that time. And then lastly, the Homebody Book Club, which is Olivia, and I think she has a blog, I can't remember, blogger channel, I will link it below if I can find it, Kaylin Abridged and Zoe Delaney. Their August pick for the Homebody Book Club is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which is a book following a group of final girls who have survived, you know, horrific events, horrific serial killing events, horrific slasher events, and they have this little support group together as they're trying to move on with their lives and figure out where to go from here. And then I believe one of them doesn't show up. Shortly thereafter, they realize they're being targeted by a new killer and they have to do whatever it takes to survive. So I'm really interested to read this one. I've heard some good things about it. It sounds really cool. A lot of Grady Hendrix premises sound really cool. I also have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires on my shelf, which I haven't gotten to yet, but I am really intrigued to see what I think of his writing and see what I think of this book, because I've only just recently got into horror and slashers. Those are all the books I'm hoping to get to in August. I only have 3 that I have to read, which is not bad at all. Final stack is kind of these plus Final Girl Support Group, which I just ordered today from my local bookstore, but I can't go pick it up until Friday because they're not open late enough. I work until 5 and they close at 5. So I will go later this week and pick it up. So there will be one more book on this, but given that these bottom 3 are the only required ones, I think it's not too bad. And I am really excited to get to all of these. So that being said, I really have been enjoying this question of the day thing that I've been seeing on a lot of people's videos. So I think today's question of the day, we're gonna try this. What's a book that you're really excited to read next? What's the thing that you are really pumped to pick up next. If you don't feel like answering that question, I'd also love it if you leave a sun emoji, because I'm gonna go enjoy some sun on my vacation, which I'm very excited about. I haven't taken off much time in quite a while, so I'm thrilled. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. I'm glad that I'm using my TBR game again. I enjoy playing it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.